Blazers return home from a 2-5 trip and lose to the Pelicans, but Scoot Henderson has been showing some promise, at least according to me. There's a hater in the house, though. We have that and more on the Blazer Focus podcast. I'm Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian and OregonLive. I'm joined, as always, by Craig Birnbach, and we just had a little heated debate right before the podcast started. We're going to get to that in a second. It's about Scoot, but for now, let's just talk about, real quickly, the road trip, 2-5. The last time we talked, you were talking about how bad that win was at Charlotte. Then they came back and they won at the Wizards. Had they lost both of those games, they would be tied right now for the third worst record in the league, behind the Spurs, who've been playing very well. So I'm assuming that you want to double down on your bad win take about the Hornets and say how bad of a win that was against the Wizards, whereas I'm going to take the tack that a few ping pong balls is not going to matter, but that it was good for them to pick up a couple wins. You go first.
Well, first of all that could matter is one ping pong ball. That's all it takes to get the number one overall pick. And Saw a 7 foot, possibly, who knows. But yes, a ping pong ball changes entire franchise's direction, could, forever and ever and ever. Let's just say how it is. The ping pong ball that landed on the Spurs three times has changed the direction of their franchise. And even in my case, as a Knicks fan, we did not win a title, but the ping pong ball falling for us to get Patrick Ewing, the one time, I love the conspiracies, the Knicks conspiracies, like we got one, and apparently the whole league wants the Knicks to win. Changed my entire childhood. So it could happen. Now, we don't see that player. We don't see a Wemby. We don't see a LeBron. We don't see a Patrick Ewing, but you just never know. You never know. So it does matter. Being higher in the draft is better than being lower in the draft. Being higher in the standings right now is not better than being lower in the standings right now with the Blazers. I'm not saying it's the biggest thing in the world. I'm not saying it's a difference between, like the fanciest dinner in the world and Taco Bell. I'm just saying it's a difference. That's it. Losing is better.
It's definitely a difference. I mean, I think
now it doesn't matter. By the way, win them all now.
If they were to finish in the top worst three records, it's a 14.5 chance. If they finish fifth, which is where they're going to finish, it's a 10. So it's a 4% difference. It is a difference. Yes, but whatever. I mean, whatever. For me, there's a ton of negative with this season. There's a ton of negative things that are going to be written about following that exit interview with Billups and Cronin, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. I think that's going to go down Monday. But I'm going to try and just focus on the guys who are playing and give them credit for going out there every night and playing hard and balling despite not just the talent deficiencies, but the basketball IQ deficiencies based on the inexperience of the group of players they had out there. I mean, Ayton was if this team were a playoff team, I would argue if this team, if everyone were healthy and this team were going to playoffs, Scoot might not be in the rotation. I'm not trying to disrespect him, but you start Ant and Sharp.
You're not trying, but you are.
No, it's not disrespect. It's a fact, and it's based on some reality. It's not disrespect. So, and it's not hate. So, I could totally see where Scoot is getting very minimal minutes in that rotation because you're rolling with Brogdon, and you might even start Brogdon and Ant, or close with Brogdon and Ant, and Sharp wouldn't even be in the closing rotation. He'd probably play though because you have to have some depth, right? So the only guy from that rotation that's still playing is Ayton, which we gave credit to him for that last time. He's out there balling with all these kids. So given that, other than the Miami loss, which was 60 points, these guys played pretty well, all things considered, and they didn't let that Miami loss completely demoralize them. And they finished 2-5, which isn't good by any standard other than the fact that when you're playing a bunch of kids and one veteran guy who knows what he's doing. So I just want to give them credit for what I thought was a solid road trip. Billups said he was happy with the road trip. So I think in that regard, it was a success. That's all.
Yeah, look, none of this, what I'm saying, is about the players that are currently on there. I'm just saying those players aren't going to be on your good team. So That's not hate. That's just
We're
reality.
gonna talk about that more later.
Right. People with more control than me believe that.
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, if you're a fan and you're rooting for the franchise, winning isn't helping you. It doesn't mean that I don't respect the players who are doing everything they can. Guys that have, Rupert plays, the other night he plays 33 minutes. He can't shoot. He's out there doing the best he can. He actually had.
Who did that?
Repair.
Did you call him Report? Did you call him Report?
I'm just blabbering sometimes. Repair. I mean, he actually had he was one of the few players that he played over 30 minutes and had a positive plus minus last night.
Plus minus, by the way. Plus minus is stupid.
I know. Okay. It's not nothing. I'm just saying this is not in any way a reflection on how I feel the players are. I mean, Walker is just playing his butt off. Scoot is playing hard.
But I mean, that's horrible.
Again, that's skill, not effort.
True.
His effort's crazy. He's diving into the crowd. I mean, they're all over the floor. They are absolutely giving it. Banton, the guy's doing everything. He's showing all his skills. So they're playing hard. So this is nothing against the players. They were not even expecting to be playing either. Other than in the their season was supposed to be over, most of these guys in the G League. So, no, this isn't disrespect to the players at all or to the coaching staff. I mean, they're actually, how do you even game plan with guys that you're like, what do you do? Like, what are you good at? Like, help me out. Like, I know they have some idea, but come on, they do not have any idea how to offensively game plan for their own team.
Well, Billups said last night that after they lost to the Pelicans, by the way, they came home and lost to the Pelicans, Portland was winning at halftime, and then the Pelicans win, and it came out, okay, let's
we need to win.
Nonsense. Yeah.
We need to win. Zion was like, excuse me, I would like to take over now.
It's funny how many times this season when the Blazers gone there and played hard, and they looked solid, and then the other team's like, okay, damn, I guess we got to play hard tonight, and then just run them off the court. But anyway.
I guess we have to win.
Right. Oh, my God, I lost my train of thought.
You said Billups last night.
So Billups said that during the trip, all those young players, he called them youngins at one point after the Boston loss. He said how they got to the point where before I had to draw everything up for them. Give it a name, draw it up, go do this. To a point where he could just say the name and then everyone would know and remember it. But it's funny when I see people complaining about Billups or complaining about the development or progress. It's people who never played sports by some of the comments they make. Anyone who's played sports understand that there's a learning curve, right? A learning curve from being a baby puppy who doesn't know jack to a veteran who's done and seen it all. And that's what Billups is dealing with. Guys who literally can only run a couple sets. You can't give them 15 sets. Because they barely know two. So you're running very simplistic stuff. So at least he said there was some progress there. But what does that mean in the long view? Who knows? Because like you said, a lot of these guys are not going to be in the rotation. Someone who's probably going to be in the rotation, for better or for worse, down the line, is Scoot Henderson. So let's transition to this. Because we have a similar argument here. I think statistically, Scoot had a very nice run the last, I think I did 11 games in my Scoot check. I'm on Scoot check 8.0 now, right? His last Scoot check, 7.0, was abysmal. He was horrible. This last one, shooting percentage jumped up. 3-point percentage jumped to 36% or something like that. Assists went from, he was averaging 5 on the season to, he had 7.7 during this last stretch. The only negative, really, his turnovers ballooned. He averaged 5 per game, including a career high 8 against the Pelicans. But overall, man, he showed a lot of improvement, and he did really well working as a 1-2 combo with Ayton setting him up, et cetera, et cetera. So, do you give Scoot any credit for this last stretch?
Yes, I give him credit. Some credit. Absolutely. She called me a hater. I'm not a hater. I'm just pointing out that we're setting the bar so low.
We're setting the bar. Dude, he was 18 and 8. 18 and 8 on 43% and 36 from 3. That's solid, man.
Right, except for the almost 5 turnovers a game. And I know you hate plus, and in games that are both meaningless, and they don't guard him. I mean, like, they're literally, he can take wide open threes whenever he wants. And like, that's what I'm saying about the bar. Like, just looking at numbers doesn't matter. Yes, it's better. And I'm glad it's better. And the stuff that he's doing with Ayton, and because that's the only guy on the team that he's playing with that is a real option to run a play for that might invert. I mean, last night he made an amazing pass to Walker. Like, he at his career high in assists. His best pass of the night was a busted up layup that Walker missed. Like, that was probably his best pass. So, like, that's not fair to him either, right? Like, sure, half his assists were throw it to the tallest guy in the court. He turns and shoots an 18-footer and drills it.
Magic made a living off of doing that with Kareem. So, hey.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that number is not as impressive as the pass he made to Walker that won't show up as an assist. And when you look at the overall, I'm just saying we're celebrating because we're looking for things to celebrate, and that's fine. I'm just not going to get blown away by the fact that he had a great first half last night and finished 7 for 18, 2 for 10, 8 turnovers, and a minus 31 because the numbers say he had 19 and 15 in 41 minutes. And honestly, when he left the game, they were down basically 20, and because he played like every minute until
he got tired. He got
Phillips
tired.
said, "Okay, we're done." Trip.
Look, it was a tale of two halves. There's no doubt about that. He was great in the first half.
Yeah,
bad in the second half. True, I know. And
I'm not giving him credit. I'm just saying,
I know.
We're searching for celebrations in the last week of a season and games they lose.
Steps.
Sure, that's fine. I'm just not going to go look and go, he had 15 assists and act like it's equal to a Magic 15 assist game in the game 6 of the finals. Like,
no, but he's also not playing with Kareem Worthy and Byron.
No, so that's what I'm saying. You can't compare any of this. It's unfair both ways is what I'm saying. It's unfair to say he had 15 assists. We should celebrate that like it's the greatest thing in the world. And it's unfair to say that, he's got 8 turnovers because he's throwing the ball to guys that he might be throwing to the right spot for all we know. Now, some of them were not. Some of them were, you had to be 8 feet tall to catch. But other times, like for all we know, is they were supposed to, to come off a screen and go the other way, and they didn't. It's not like he's dribbling it off his foot. It's mostly bad passes.
I'm not saying it's like he arrived, he's there, I'm not saying that at all. I just really wanted to see him bounce back from the last stretch. He shot 18% on threes during the last stretch of games.
It's better than that.
5 of 28. This time he shoots 37%. That's obviously a huge jump. His overall shooting percentage went up. His minutes went up and points went up. He went from 11 per game in the last check to 17 this time. So that's all I'm saying. It's like there was a big jump of progress. That's good to go into the offseason with. At least you can say he's ending on a high note. But yeah, the Scoot Henderson right now isn't ready to impact win. He's not. But he was dramatically impacting losing, right? Whereas now he looks like someone who probably wouldn't impact winning at a high level, but at least he's getting to the point where he can give you some reliable minutes, maybe not 30-something, but I'm just trying to give him the credit for the baby steps he's showing. That's all.
And I will give him credit for the baby steps, absolutely. But I will also say I'm not super excited that Banton had 28 against the Celtics. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not going to sit here and go, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
now,
we're going to talk about it in a minute.
I'm just saying, is it better than him scoring 8? Yes, of course. But does it mean I think that Banton is that 28 points actually relates to something meaningful or extremely meaningful? No. All these guys are super talented. That's what that says to me.
So then let's go to the next guy. You want to lead this one?
I mean, what a crazy flip that this year has brought us. That Fentress is the optimist and Birnbach is the negative guy. Like, that's what this season is. That's what 3 years of this
Listen, I'm laying the groundwork of positivity.
He's laying low
because I'm recognizing the situation. I mean, the injury list sweeps the active player list, right? So I'm just trying to be fair because the storm is coming. Because there's going to be a lot of pressure on this franchise to make a choice. Are you going to try and win, or are you going to go back next year and lose again? Because I don't believe the fans. We talked about that before. We'll talk about that more this summer. But so I'm just trying to find the positives where I can
laying low.
So let's go to this next cat, Shaden Sharp. Shut down officially. We all pretty much know he wasn't going to come back for muscle surgery before the end of the season. He had it in February. Like we saw how long it took Peyton, Lillard, Nasir. Like, it's just not something you come back from in 2 months like that. If they were going into the playoffs, maybe he could have, come back in a couple more weeks. But pretty much a foregone conclusion he wasn't going to play. He didn't play. So now when you look at this season, and this was supposed to be a huge season for him, and it's one of the arguments that this was sort of a lost season for development, is that he played 32 games with 25 starts. And his scoring went up because his minutes went up. He went from 22 minutes last year to 33. So his points went from 10 to 16. But his shooting numbers all went down dramatically. He went from 47% shooting last year to 41, 36 from threes last year to 33. So and then his effective went from 55 to 47. So what do you make of this season for Shaden Sharp? Complete loss, or did we see anything that we can latch on to as hope? And the hope with him, here's the thing. He was virtually untouchable in the quest to find players for Dame. So he's got to become a star. He and Scoot have to become stars to make any of it make sense. So do you walk away from the season still with hope, or do you think, wow, this was a step back for him?
So first I'm going to tell you, make sure you're talking it on mic. When you get ahead of it, when you're looking at the screen.
Did I mess up?
Yeah, then you lose your volume. So
really? Go ahead.
Here's things that most people don't say about Fentress or me. Can't hear you. Not usually a thing in my life or your life. It's not a complete loss because he played some and he's a year older. And he watched a lot of basketball. So he should be better. And he was he was getting coached. And as you mentioned, some of this game isn't just what you do on the court. It's your basketball IQ. So it should be improving. So I'm not going to say it's a complete loss, but it's darn near a worst case scenario. It's if you ask me what's the worst thing that could happen with Shaden Sharp? Well, he could get hurt and miss most of the season. Okay. That's what happened. So the sample size is not nothing, as you said. It's not nothing. But it's 32 games and it's not competitive games, and he shot 33%. And to me, scarier, as you said, he shot basically 40.5%, 41% from the field.
Right.
So when you do that, you are not efficient. You're not efficient. You're not an efficient NBA basketball player. Despite the fact that you can jump out of the gym, despite the fact that you have the ability to make threes that look like you can shoot 60%. Because I got to tell you, like, in my time here, you and I both covered Travis Outlaw.
I didn't.
Okay, well, I did. You saw him.
Mm-hmm.
Athletically gifted as head, anything. Martell Webster was a lottery pick for a reason at his age. And those guys did not become stars. And as you mentioned, like, role player is not good enough from Shaden Sharp. So right now, there's no reason to say he can't be a star because he's basically played not even a full season in the NBA,
He played 80 games last year.
Right, but he didn't play a lot, necessarily.
Correct.
The sample size is too small, but the clock ticks. And you know how you don't usually get better? By not playing, by being injured. Doesn't usually happen.
Right.
Guys can get, guys will come back and say, I got this time to watch and do this. And for a guy who's 20 and 21 years old, that could be really valuable. But all we've done is kick the can down the road of hope.
Right.
It's all hope.
100%.
And now hope goes into next year, which makes it harder to make a decision. And also makes less people give up more for Shaden Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
No one's given up more than they did. And so all your assets, again, in my opinion, every single asset has diminished this year. That matters. I mean, they got Kamara as a second round throw in, and now people might want him, but he's not going to get you much.
Most valuable assets entering the season have all depreciated.
Yes, that thank you. Agreed.
Okay, so my stance on Sharp is this. The injuries were messing with him even before he got shut down. He had a stretch where he was just killing it. He's fearless. He can shoot from anywhere. I so hate the idea that we're in this age where it's at the rim or three. I love guys who can hit the mid-range jumper. That's why I like DeRozan. I like Shea. This guy can hit the mid-range jumper and get to anywhere he wants to and hit it. I have not lost faith or hope in his ability to become a star. This was a down season. I give him a pass. I still think that the talent is undeniable. But yeah, last year, Scoot and Sharp weren't untouchable, but it was going to take a king's ransom to move them. Now, they can't move them because it would just make them look ridiculous. But they wouldn't get much for those guys at all. Nowhere near what they would have gotten last year. Grant has the huge contract. Grant played well this season. So Grant could have appreciated if not for the contract. So maybe he stayed the same. And then, of course, Ant had an injury-riddled season as well. So his value definitely didn't increase. But it's too bad, man. Like, when you look at what the hope was coming into the season, for me, it was to see Ant blow up and establish himself as this team's number one guy, and to see Shaedon step up and maybe become the number two or close to it. And we didn't get any of that. And it's unfortunate that Shaedon had this type of season, but it is what it is. Injuries happen, but I haven't lost hope or belief in his potential. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just hope. It's hope. You're hoping that
keep hope alive.
And it's not dead, right? He didn't go out and play 82 games shooting at 40.5%.
Right.
And he did have that 10-game, run that we were like, this is what we expect. And then he had a 10-game run where he might have been hurt. You know what I mean? Like, and not able to do things because right now his best attribute is his athleticism. He's not Kobe and Michael Jordan, who would just, for the first 5 years of their lives was all about athleticism and then became the most deadly, scorers because they did everything technically perfect. And why would he be there at his age? So that's the part that if he is hurt physically, and I think he was because, he was really bad and then they shut him down. And it's just frustrating that, we knew this, people said, oh, they're going to bring him back. And I was like, they're not going to bring him back. Like, what's the point of bringing him back? Like 4 or 5 games. Like, I just never saw that, because the risk of re-injury without being able to ramp up is huge and hurting something else. And that's what usually, that happens a lot, right? Guys come back. Even if they're physically 100%, they mentally feel a little weird with something. So they hurt something else. It's not worth the risk. So now we keep hope alive until next year, or at some point in time, like, to get good players, you have to give up stuff that people want, and people are still going to want him.
Right.
So, and you're still doubled up in places that you don't need to be doubled up, right? So, like, you're still stuck with too many guards. So your dream is for them to be competitive next year, and to me, it's like, well, you're going to have to move somebody. You can't keep them all and be competitive because then you're just wasting your time.
True. So we talked earlier about, what these games meant and who's out there. And it's nice. These kids played reasonably well, but are any of them going to be involved in the bigger picture moving forward? I asked Chauncey Billups prior to the Pelicans game, about the benefits of being able to play all these forwards, and the forwards would be Kamara before he was shut down, Jabari Walker, Mania, Rupert, and Chris Murray. And he said, yeah, it's been great. They've learned a lot, et cetera, et cetera. And then I asked him, do you see a future starter in that group? And he said he pretty much doesn't know, and that maybe there's someone who would be the number 5 option and a starter, but not a full-time starter. So, and this, you and I have talked about this. It's like, who on this roster, who of these guys really has a chance to become an impact starter? To me, because of his defense, it might be Kamara. An impact, I mean low impact. Or Murray, if he keeps developing an outside shot, he could, if he's your number 5 option and you were better other places and he can drain that 3, maybe he's a serviceable starter down the line. But the bottom line is we're watching a bunch of guys who, you're hoping for solid role play at some point. And they don't mean that much in terms of the overall future of this franchise getting back to winning. That impact forward is probably not on this roster. Maybe they get him in the draft. Maybe they're able to acquire him in a trade, which, I mean, how many times has that happened in the history of the franchise? But at least Billups was honest about it that, I don't really know if I see that guy in that group.
Yeah, I feel that that's one characteristic about Billups that I really enjoy is that he is really honest. Like he's probably not telling us everything he's feeling during the season, but he doesn't try to overhype and lie, right? He's not sitting there and saying that I see Kamara as Scottie Pippen, like you'll see on, online. Like, right. What? Like, slow your roll, man. Like, let's get to a place where he's even a lockdown defender that's, that's like people don't go, they skip like right past Michael Cooper and go to Scottie Pippen, right? Like to the greatest, one of the greatest, like, forward, point forward defenders. I see a lot of guys that I've said that could be 8 through 12 on your roster. I don't see a ton of guys that are playing that are 1 through 5. I mean, do I see guys that could be your 5th starter on a good team? Yeah, if the other 4 starters are really, really good, but nobody has any offense except Banton, and I don't know what position he plays. I mean, I'll admit it. I'm enjoying watching him because he doesn't care either what position he plays. He's like, you know what? I'm the best option. So I'm gonna shoot. Like,
shoot a lot.
You know why? Because I see the guy to the left, he can't shoot. I see the guy to the right, he can't drive. I'm pretty sure I can do both better, so I'm gonna do it. And he's played hard, and he couldn't shoot at all with the previous teams, but maybe because the sample size was so small. He's 6'8", he's long, he gets to the rim really well, he finishes well. His basketball IQ is higher than a lot of the other guys playing. He's in the right place at the right time a lot. He gets his own rebounds. But that's why he's in the NBA. You know what I mean? Because he's talented. That's why 3 teams, said, okay, he doesn't suck. We'll take him. And is there a place for him on this team going forward? I have no idea because he's a guy that needs the ball to be effective. And that's why he hadn't been able to. That's why Boston couldn't play him. Always remember this. The best guys in the G League are not, like, when you look at points and stuff, they don't often get the call because they're not looking for guys that can score in the NBA. Those guys go 1 through 25 in the draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will always remember when I was covering, what was the D League in North Charleston, and Ime Udoka was the coach at the time. You remember Alex English?
Mm-hmm.
Smooth Alex English. He was the coach, and it was him and an assistant coach, I think Doug Henry. And I said, they had a point guard that was average like 20-something a game. I was like, oh, he's going to be the first one called up. And they're like, no. Ime Udoka. I'm like, what? That guy averages like 10 points, 5 assists a game. He's like, yeah, but he plays defense. He knows his role. And they don't need more Kobe's. Those guys are making then $10 million a year. Now it's 50. But he's like, those positions are not open. The position is 12 minutes a game. So, and that's what we're looking at. Like guys that Banton, when given time on a bad team, he can score because he's really talented. But is he better than other guys that do that? Well, no, because they were called the Celtics, and those 2 guys are Hall of Famers and might win a championship.
It's crazy because there's some nights when he's just looked really good, but again, like you said, it's like really good compared to what? And on the pregame and postgame show, they keep raving about him, right? They keep, Delano Banton has played his way into this and that and that and this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, we'll see. I asked someone, a source, and they said he has a chance to return, but he's not. What do you do with him? He's going to be 3rd string, whatever he is. A 3rd string small forward, a 3rd string point guard. He's going to be 3rd. If he's in your rotation, you could have issues. I'll just give you an example of the issues we're talking about. So despite the fact that he's been playing well, so to speak, over the last 12 games, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, but he shot 42% and 31 on threes. For every good game he has where he shoots well from three, like when he was 4 for 8 against Orlando, he comes back and goes 1 for 4, 2 for 6, 3 for 9, 2 for 8. And prior to that, he was 1 for 7. And prior to that, he was 5 for 11. He lit it up, 31 points, 9 rebounds, I think, against Atlanta. But before that, 2 of 9 on three, 1 of 6, 2 of 6, 2 of 7, 1 of 2. 1 of 2 is good, obviously. So the point is he's just wildly inconsistent, but you put him on a team where he's one of 2 adults, right? And you give him the green light, he's going to put up points. But is he putting up the type of points that you would want someone to be putting up in terms of the shots he's taking in a real winning situation? And the answer is not a chance, right?
He's doing,
it's not a
again,
chance.
This is not about the player, right? He's doing everything. He's doing great. He's gotten the opportunity. He is making the most of it. But what does that mean for his future? Hopefully for him, it means he gets to be in the NBA for like 8-9 years. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But nobody's sitting there saying this guy is a starter. Doesn't mean there's not a chance that he could be. Maybe he develops more. It happens. It's rare. It's not the usual thing that happens, but like, it's not even like when you look at guys like DiVincenzo, who's blowing up with the Knicks this year because he's starting and they're letting him shoot. And that guy was an established NBA player and a starter on multiple teams, right? Like, so he has raised his game, but he wasn't on the bench with a bunch of people saying, I don't know if he can make it. He wasn't being, dumped in trades or released. Like, he was a guy that he was on teams with Giannis. Like, yeah, you're not going to get the ball that much. But when you did, he shot it and he made threes. Like, people knew what he could do. He played defense. He can handle the ball. Like, stories of guys going from being dumped by multiple teams to being all-star level or just below or starter level are rare. But it's not. All Banton is doing is everything he can to prove that he belongs and that he should, and that someone should believe in him.
Right. If I'm the Blazers, if I'm the Blazers, I'm keeping him. I'm going to try and keep him as, like I said, a third string guy who can play multiple positions. And he's a veteran guy and he's cheap and he's 6'9". We know height has been an issue in the past. Like, I could definitely see a path to keeping that guy because he's versatile and he gives you someone off the bench that you can use when you have injuries, which we know the team has a lot of injuries. All right, I know we got to close this up soon. Let's end with this. Exit interviews, I believe, with Billups and Cronin will be Monday. The final game is Sunday at Sacramento. What do you want to know most? Learn most from those two, especially Cronin.
So I want to learn most from Billups where his future is. He's got a contract with options. He's gone through this. Like, I want to know, like, is he all in? Like, or is he thinking? I'm not going to find that out, but I'm interested in his future. I've often said that he's got choices, more choices than probably people give him credit for. And at some point in time, I don't know how a guy that just made the Hall of Fame for being a winner, like how much longer he can do this and be okay with it. I'm not saying he can't, but at some point in time, the guy's been known as a winner doesn't want to have the worst, coaching record in NBA history. I don't know what Joe Cronin can tell me at this point that I care about hearing, because to me it doesn't matter what he says; it's what happens. And I'm not one to say, oh, he lied, he this or that or whatever. But we heard plans. And none of them have come to fruition, right? Like, before the season, it was all about build around Dame, even when nothing they were doing was building around Dame. Like, people go back in this and me say, like, they're not building around Dame. This is ridiculous. As soon as they didn't trade the pick, it was over. As soon as they didn't trade Shaden's pick, it was over. Like, they weren't building around Dame. So I don't know what he can say now. He could say one or two things. We're going to continue to stay young and build around who? Who is he going to say? Shaden and Scoot? And Simons and Ayton? Like, that's what you're going to call your core? And someone point out that 3 of them play the same, area of the court, and there's not enough room for that, and maybe you should get rid of one of them, or you're going to say that we think we have parts here to bring in talent, and add Grant to the mix and say that they could be a competitive team. I don't care what they say, because to me, it's what they do.
I can't disagree. I can't disagree. You're right. The latest stated plan is building around the youngsters and developing chemistry, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you continue with that, now they did try to trade Brogdon for a player. Like they were trying to get some of the young talent in here. They couldn't get what they wanted for Brogdon. They were only offered picks. But sometimes you just have to make sacrifices and give up on certain things that you believe could become good to get vets who just know how to play the game at a certain level to where you don't have to draw up plays for them. You can tell them and they know what they're doing, and they're not going to make the simple mistakes that a lot of these youngsters are making. And so for me, I want to know if there's going to be like, okay, we need to be aggressive because we don't want to be in the lottery again. We don't want our fans to be in the lottery again with that type of season. And if that's not going to be the plan, then what you're saying is we're going to use these picks, we're going to get even younger, and we're just going to let it roll again next year. And if everyone's healthy, they could flirt with the play-in maybe, but you're still going to be too young, right? You're still going to be too young to really do a ton. And so what are you saying to the fans? Wait even longer? So now you're going to have a fourth year in the lottery? And then is there any guarantee it's not going to be the fifth? You're never going to get out of that until you actually have some veterans on the roster who can ball. Multiple. Like your 8-9 man rotation needs to have 7 legitimate impact, veterans at different levels. So that's what I want to know. Like, what do you want the fans to latch onto now? Because you sold them a bill of goods last summer. That Scoot was your normal 19-year-old. We got Shaden, we had Ant, we went and got DeAndre Ayton, blah, blah, blah. We kept Grant, we kept Matisse, and it's arguably the worst season in the history of the franchise. There's an argument for that. So that's what I want to know.
So let me I don't disagree, other than the fact that if you roll out with your best players that are on the current roster, if healthy, you are not too young. I mean, because then you're talking about, Ayton, who will be 26. You're talking about Brogdon, who will be 31, 32. You're talking about Jeremy Grant, who will be 30, 31. You're talking about even Robert Williams, who will be 27. You'll be talking about
okay, but that's the top half. The bench and the rotation.
I'm just saying though, but you're not OKC,
yes, you are.
Man. You don't got tons of young. You're not the Rockets.
You're okay. You're not the Rockets when they were flegeling.
I'm saying that talent that gets you to winning is not going to be
Craig,
super duper young.
This is my point. 2 years ago, when Dame had his greatest season ever, what killed that team? What killed that team was a lack of veteran depth. They were too young behind their regular core. That's what I'm talking about. You're still going to be too young. You're not everywhere, but you're still going to be too young on the roster to weather any type of injuries or have legit depth. Plus, you still don't have a true number one player. You don't have an alpha, so to speak. And your best player is not going to want to be here. Well, not your best player. Your oldest player is not going to want to be here, and that's Brogdon. And your best players are still going to be in that mid-20s range, and none of them has established themselves as a legitimate anchor. So that's what I'm saying. In order to have a true impact as a winning team, you're still going to be too young. You're not going to be completely filled with a bunch of children, but you're going to still be too young. I guarantee you Bills would agree with that as well. Because you still got Scoot.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that you're not
in the rotation. You got Scoot in the rotation and Sharp, 21-20, and then you have the rookies going to be in the rotation who's going to be 19. That's too young. That's all I'm saying.
Right. If that's the way, if you keep the next pick, right, and you keep Sharp. I'm just saying the alternative is you trade Sharp for and the pick and get yourself a number one.
Well, okay, that's a completely different scenario than what I was talking about.
No, but I'm just saying,
you said if you roll it back, you said if you come back with what you had. Now you're changing it to if we traded Sharp for someone else.
I'm just saying if you come back with what you have, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense Like it's just
to
like
do that.
it's crazy to me. Like
unless you're just like, you know what, we got another rookie. It was an off season for Scoot and Sharp. Let's just see what we have next year and let it develop again. And that's where you come back to Billups, where Billups has to say, okay, wait a minute, we're destined to lose 50 games at least. Give me an extension so I feel secure that I'm here to help develop what I'm going to benefit from, not that you're not going to pick up my option and let me go after I get 50 more losses tagged on me because this has been a disaster.
So any business that was run, you could not be bankrupt for 4 straight years and expect people to buy your product. Like, like that's the problem where they are, in my opinion, is that you can't go a 4th straight year of saying we're starting over. And people could say the rebuild,
but we don't care about winning. That's what you
can
say.
What I'm saying is you still don't have your number one. Like that, there aren't a lot of teams that can go 4 years without seeing, a possible superstar or an all-star on a roster. Like then you're Charlotte, you know what I mean? Like, and your bottom barrel teams. And like even now, Charlotte finally got one. Like Miller looks like a guy you can build around. He might not be, but he looks like it. Right. I mean, the Rockets have, rebuilt like with all this young talent. OKC, what they did, that it's incredible and a lot of luck there, but they did it. And I don't know why a fan will go invest in this again. And they have to think that way.
You would think.
They have to give a product that people want to watch and entertaining. And it does stink that Sharp didn't turn into, what we're seeing from Miller, or and Scoot. When you're at, and that Scoot didn't look like Zion, you know what I mean? Like, because even Zion, who's been struggled in his first few years, even John Morant, who's obviously had problems, those teams can at least look at guys and say, that's fun to watch. And there's a chance. There's a chance that guy leads us to a championship.
But it's highly probable
they don't have that.
It's highly probable that they still believe that either Scoot, Sharp, and or now Ayton could elevate to that level. And so then you say, okay, we can't find anyone better, so let's just roll with this again. And then the fans are going to have to buy into it all working out, which, hey, if everyone stays healthy, who knows? And if Scoot makes a jump and Sharp makes a jump and Ayton keeps doing what he's been doing and Ant is healthy and Robert Williams, oh my God, their defense will be so much better having Williams coming off the bench, right? Then all of a sudden, you could be 500. I would honestly say that right now, there's a pathway to 500 next season if everything went right. The problem is, when was the last time everything went right? 2019, until Nurkic broke his leg. It's probably the last time everything went right. It doesn't happen very often. So,
well, anyway. they got to a conference finals because a lot of things went wrong for others.
That's true too.
Clippers lost their best players.
Right.
But we're dreaming. It's all about hope.
It's all about hope. Keep hope alive, baby. All right, that's it for the Blazer Focus podcast. We will be back at the end of the season after we get the exit interviews done with Billups, Cronin, and several players, and we're going to break it all down and head into the offseason. Thanks for listening.